The red dust of Meridian 7 clung to everything Marcus's boots. His jacket, the datapad clutched in his trembling hands. 3 moons hung in the lavender sky, casting strange shadows across the ceremony ground where 200 colonists had gathered. He stood at the altar, a simple platform of polished stone, trying not to think about how his life had just been sold for a water filtration treaty. "You good, Webb?" Jenkins whispered from beside him, serving as witness because someone had to, and Jenkins owed him for that mess with the hydroponic tanks last spring. "Do I look good?" Marcus muttered back, tugging at the collar of his formal suit. The fabric felt wrong against his skin, too stiff, too ceremonial. Nothing like the work clothes he lived in, covered in soil and honest sweat. "You look like a man about to meet his alien bride." "Thanks. Real helpful." The music started, if you could call it music. Velthian ceremonial instruments produced sounds that humans described as somewhere between wind chimes and whale song. Haunting, beautiful in an unsettling way. Marcus had been on Meridian 7 for 5 years, ever since Earth's colonial authority had recruited him to help terraform this dust ball into something resembling farmland. He'd succeeded, too. The valleys now bloomed with hybrid crops, and the colonists no longer depended entirely on supply ships from Earth. That success had made him valuable. Valuable enough for Governor Pritchard to offer him up like a prize pig when the Velthian Consortium came calling with their treaty proposal. "It's an honor," Pritchard had said, his politician's smile not quite reaching his eyes. The Velthians specifically requested someone of significance. Someone who represents our best. Their water technology could save this colony, Webb. All you have to do is marry one of their diplomats. She'll live here with you under our laws. It's just a formality." Formality. Marcus clenched his jaw. His whole future reduced to a formality for better plumbing. The crowd parted, and she appeared. Marcus's breath caught despite himself. The Sara moved like water, her long silver robes flowing around a frame both tall and willowy. The Velthians were humanoid enough, 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head, but the differences sang out in subtle ways. Her skin held a faint iridescence, like mother of pearl, shifting between cream and pale gold in the moonlight. High cheekbones framed eyes that were too large, too luminous, their color somewhere between amber and copper. Her hair fell past her shoulders in waves of deep burgundy. Shot through with strands of actual silver, it caught the light. She was, Marcus admitted reluctantly, stunning. She was also, according to the briefing packet he'd been given, 61 years old. Not that Velthian aging worked like human aging. They lived longer, aged slower, their 60s supposedly equivalent to human 40s. But the number still rattled around his skull like a stone in a can. The Sara reached the altar, and her eyes met his for the first time. Intelligence burned there, sharp and assessing. She was reading him just as surely as he was reading her, taking his measure, judging the man she'd been bound to by bureaucratic necessity. "Marcus Webb," she said, and her voice was rich, textured like aged wine. The translator implant behind his ear barely worked. Her English was nearly perfect, just touched with an accent that made certain syllables sing. "I am the Sara Vel Mathrin, of the 3rd House of the Velthian Consortium. I greet you with," I believe the phrase is "mixed feelings?" A surprised laugh escaped him. "That's honest. I find honesty preferable to pretty lies, especially in circumstances such as these." She glanced at the crowd, at Governor Pritchard beaming like he'd personally arranged a love match, at the Velthian delegation watching with inscrutable expressions. "Shall we proceed with this theater?" The efficient, a nervous clerk named Morrison, who'd been deputized for the occasion, cleared his throat. "We are gathered here under the jurisdiction of the Colonial Authority and the Velthian Consortium to witness the formal bonding of—" Could we skip to the binding part? The Sara interrupted gently. I do not mean offense, but these ceremonies tend to last hours in my culture, and I would prefer to avoid an extended performance. Morrison looked to Pritchard, who looked to the Velthian delegation, had an older male named Corvan, whose expression suggested he'd swallowed something sour. Finally, Corvan nodded stiffly. Right then, Morrison said, relief evident. Marcus Webb, do you accept the Sara Vel Mathrin as your bonded partner, to share quarters and life under the terms of the Meridian Treaty? Marcus looked at the Sara again. In the copper depths of her eyes, he saw something unexpected, a flash of vulnerability quickly masked. She didn't want this either. Maybe that made them allies of a sort. I do, he said. The Sara Vel Mathrin, do you accept Marcus Webb as your bonded partner, to share quarters and life under the terms of the Meridian Treaty? I accept, she replied, her voice steady, but quieter than before. Then, by the power vested in me by Governor Pritchard and the colonial authority, I declare you formally bonded. You may, UH. Morrison floundered, clearly unsure of Velthian customs. We seal bonds with a gesture of trust, the Sara said. She extended her hand, palm up, and Marcus noticed the slight tremor in her fingers. In my culture, this indicates openness, vulnerability. To accept it is to promise protection. Marcus placed his hand over hers. Her skin was warm, warmer than he'd expected, and he felt the rapid flutter of her pulse against his palm. She was nervous. Somehow that made her more real, less like an alien diplomat, and more like a woman whose life had just been upended. The crowd applauded politely. Jenkins clapped Marcus on the shoulder hard enough to hurt. The Velthian delegation bowed in unison, then retreated to their ship, leaving the Sara behind like a package delivered and signed for. Within an hour, the ceremony ground had emptied. Marcus found himself walking beside his new wife through the colony's central district, neither of them speaking. Their shadows stretched long in the moonlight, one human-shaped, one just slightly off. Your quarters are in the agricultural sector? The Sara asked finally. Yeah, I've got a hab unit near the main greenhouses. 2 rooms, kitchen, bathroom. Nothing fancy, but it's clean. He paused. I can take the couch. You can have the bedroom. She turned to look at him, surprise flickering across her features. That is ... considerate. I didn't ask for this marriage, Marcus said bluntly. I'm guessing you didn't either. We can be civil about it. Professional. Professional, she echoed, something unreadable in her tone. Yes, that seems wise. They reached his hab unit, and Marcus keyed in the entry code. The door slid open to reveal his Spartan living space-functional furniture. A few books on shelves, pictures of Earth landscapes he'd never see again pinned to the walls. It had always felt sufficient before. Now, seeing it through her eyes, it felt small and sad. The Sara stepped inside, her robes whispering against the floor. She moved to the window that overlooked the greenhouse complex, lights glowing like earthbound stars in the darkness. You created all this? She asked, gesture encompassing the view. Not alone. But yeah, I led the agricultural program. Soil composition, hybrid development, irrigation systems. He shrugged. Someone had to make sure we didn't starve. And now you are married to ensure we do not die of thirst. She turned to face him, and in the dim light of the hab unit, she looked ethereal and impossibly sad. We are both pawns in a larger game, Marcus Webb. Maybe, he agreed. But pawns can still choose how they move. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. You are more philosophical than your file suggested. You read a file on me? Of course. Just as you read one on me. She moved away from the window, began unfastening the elaborate clasps of her ceremonial robes. Marcus quickly turned away, heat rising in his cheeks, but she laughed, a low, genuine sound. I wear undergarments, Marcus. You need not avert your eyes like a scandalized youth. Right, sorry, He ran a hand through his hair. This is weird. Yes, she agreed softly. Very weird. When he glanced back, she'd removed the outer robes to reveal a simpler garment beneath, something between a tunic and a dress in deep blue fabric. Without the ceremonial layers, she looked smaller, more human, though that word felt wrong to use. The bedroom is through there, Marcus said, pointing. Bathrooms attached. I'll grab some blankets for the couch, Marcus. She waited until he met her eyes. Thank you. For the choice of honesty earlier. For this, she gestured at the space between them. Many humans would have ... expectations. Yeah, well, I'm not most humans. He tried for a smile. Besides, we're stuck together for at least a year, according to the treaty. Might as well not make it miserable. A year, Visara repeated, and something flickered in her expression. Hope, maybe, or resignation. Yes, a year. She disappeared into the bedroom, and Marcus was left alone with the weight of what he'd just agreed to. Married to an alien woman, 33 years his senior. For water filtration technology and political leverage. Outside, the 3 moons continued their dance across the sky, indifferent to the small human drama playing out below. Marcus pulled blankets from the storage closet and made up the couch, trying not to think about the woman sleeping in his bed, trying not to wonder what the next year would bring, trying not to notice that when Visara had smiled, something in his chest had tightened in a way that felt dangerously like interest. This was going to be complicated. The first week of marriage to Visara passed in careful, awkward politeness. They orbited each other like distant planets sharing meals, exchanging basic pleasantries, then retreating to their separate spaces. Marcus spent his days in the greenhouses, coaxing life from alien soil. Visara spent hers in the colony's administrative center, working on the water treaty implementation with a dedication that bordered on obsessive. They were strangers sharing an address. Nothing more. On the 8th night, Marcus came home to find her standing at his kitchen counter, staring at a pot of something that smelled vaguely like burned plastic. I attempted to cook, Visara announced without preamble. Her tone caught between defiant and embarrassed. Your human recipes are ... imprecise. What does a pinch mean? How does one pinch a liquid? Despite everything, Marcus laughed. What were you trying to make? Something called pasta. The description said it was simple. She gestured at the pot, where a congealed mass of what might have once been noodles sat in gray water. I have concluded that description was a lie. Maybe I should handle the cooking, Marcus suggested diplomatically. Perhaps that would be wise. She moved away from the stove, and he noticed she'd changed from her formal diplomatic attire into something. Simpler loose pants and a soft shirt that made her look younger. Less like an alien dignitary and more like just a woman. I am competent in many areas, Marcus. 73 languages. Interstellar law. Quantum negotiations. But your Earth cuisine defeats me. 73 languages? He started salvaging what he could from the pot, deciding soup was the safest option. That's impressive. It is necessary in my work. She leaned against the counter, watching him with those 2 large amber eyes. Or it was. I suspect my career as a roving diplomat has concluded now that I am ... bonded. There was weight in that word, something more than just the legal term. Marcus glanced at her, catching the tightness around her mouth, the way her fingers twisted together. You gave up a lot for this treaty, he said quietly. As did you. She was silent for a moment. Then, may I ask you something personal? Sure. Do you hate me for this? For being the reason you're trapped in this arrangement? Marcus stopped stirring, considering the question honestly. No, he said finally. You didn't choose this either. If anything, I hate the politicians who decided we were chess pieces they could move around. He resumed stirring, adding some dried herbs. But you? You've been nothing but respectful. Honest, that counts for something. I am 61 years old, Marcus. Her voice dropped, became almost vulnerable. In human terms, I am ancient compared to you. When the consortium selected me for this bonding, I argued against it. I told them the age difference was inappropriate, that you deserved someone from your own generation. They did not listen. Why you? Marcus asked. Out of all their diplomats, why choose someone who'd argue against it? Thesara's laugh was bitter. Because I am expendable. My husband died 12 years ago. My daughter was killed in a transport accident 7 years past. I have no family to object, no political alliances that would be disrupted by my removal from Belthian society. She met his eyes. I am a widow with nothing left to lose. The perfect candidate for exile. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Exile. That's what this is for you? What else would you call it? She gestured around the small hab unit. I left behind my home, my world, everything familiar. I came here to live among strangers, bonded to a man who never asked for me, all so my government could secure better water prices. Her voice cracked slightly. So yes, Marcus, this is exile dressed in diplomatic language. He turned off the stove, the soup forgotten. I didn't know. About your family. The briefing packet just had your career highlights. Of course it did. My grief is not relevant to trade negotiations. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly looking fragile despite her height. Forgive me. I should not burden you with this. We agreed to be professional. Screw professional, Marcus said, surprising himself. We're married, Thesara. Maybe not in any real sense, but legally, officially. We're stuck in this together. That means we can at least be honest with each other. Real. She studied him for a long moment, something shifting in her expression. Real, she repeated softly. I have not been real with anyone in a very long time. Then start now, tonight. He ladled soup into 2 bowls, passing her one. Tell me about your husband, your daughter. Tell me who you were before they made you into a diplomatic sacrifice. They moved to the small living area, settling on opposite ends of the couch, not quite touching, but closer than they'd been before. And Thesara began to talk. Her husband's name had been Kevron, a scholar who studied ancient Velthian poetry. They'd met when she was young, barely 23 by Velthian counting, and he'd been 57. The age gap hadn't mattered. They'd loved fiercely and completely for 36 years. He would have liked you, Thesara said, a sad smile touching her lips. Kevron appreciated stubborn practicality. He used to say I was too much fire, and he was too much air, and together we made something balanced. Their daughter, Solara, had been an engineer, brilliant and reckless and funny. She died when a transport ship suffered a catastrophic engine failure, along with 43 others. Thesara had been off-world when it happened, attending a trade conference, unable even to say goodbye. I buried my child, she whispered, staring into her soup. No parent should outlive their child. It breaks something fundamental in the soul. Marcus didn't know what to say to that kind of pain. So he did the only thing he could think of. He reached across the space between them and took her hand. Thesara stiffened, then slowly relaxed. Her fingers curled around his, holding tight like he was an anchor in a storm. After Solara died, I threw myself into work, she continued. Took every assignment, no matter how dangerous or remote. I wanted to be anywhere but home, where everything reminded me of what I'd lost. When the consortium approached me about Meridian 7, about bonding with a human colonist, I almost said yes immediately. Another escape. Another way to run from grief. But you argued against it anyway, because it was not fair to you. You did not deserve to be shackled to a broken woman running from ghosts. She turned to look at him, really look at him, and he saw tears gathering in those amber eyes. You still do not deserve it, Marcus. You should have a partner who can give you joy, children if you want them, a real future. Not this half-life with someone like me, someone like you. Marcus shifted closer, still holding her hand. Desara, you've lost people you loved. That doesn't make you broken. It makes you human well. You know what I mean. It makes you real. And maybe I didn't ask for this marriage, but I'm starting to think I got luckier than either of us realized. How can you say that? You barely know me. I know you tried to cook pasta even though you've probably never cooked a meal in your life. I know you argued against this arrangement because you cared about fairness more than your own comfort. I know you've spent every day this week working yourself to exhaustion on treaty implementation, probably because it's the only way you know how to cope. He squeezed her hand gently. I know you're in pain and you're lonely and you're trying so damn hard to be strong. That's more than most people show me after months of knowing them. A tear slipped down her cheek, leaving a faint luminescent trail on her iridescent skin. I am 61 years old, Marcus. You are 28. Even by Velthian standards, this is numbers, he interrupted. Just numbers. What matters is right here, right now. Two people trying to figure out how to live together. Two people who've both been screwed over by circumstances beyond their control. Two people who could maybe, possibly, become something more than just strangers bound by a treaty. You cannot possibly want, she stopped, swallowed hard. I am not what you would choose. Maybe not a week ago, Marcus admitted. But right now, in this moment, I'm choosing to see you. Not the diplomat. Not the treaty obligation. Just the Sara. The woman who's stubborn and smart and trying to cook pasta in the middle of the night because she doesn't want to be a burden. That woman? She's pretty remarkable. The Sara's breath hitched. I do not know how to do this. How to be with someone again. How to let myself feel anything other than grief. Then we figure it out together. Slowly. No pressure. No expectations beyond honesty. He smiled tentatively. And maybe I'll teach you how to cook. That seems like a safe place to start. A watery laugh escaped her. That is possibly the least romantic thing anyone has ever said to me. Yeah, well, I work with dirt for a living. Romance isn't exactly my strong suit. But when she leaned forward, closing the distance between them, pressing her forehead gently against his, Marcus felt something shift in his chest. Something that had been frozen, carefully locked away since he'd agreed to this arrangement. Thank you, the Sara whispered, for seeing me. They stayed like that for a long moment, not kissing, not quite embracing, just existing in the same space with honesty between them. Outside, Meridian 7's 3 moons painted silver patterns across the floor. And somewhere in the greenhouses, hybrid plants grew in soil that shouldn't support them. Impossible things happened every day. Maybe this, whatever this was becoming, was just another impossible thing taking root. The soup's probably cold, Marcus said eventually. I do not care about the soup. Good, because it was mostly salvaged from your pasta disaster anyway. That earned him a real laugh. Bright and genuine, and Marcus discovered he'd do just about anything to hear that sound again. Stay, the Sara said softly. Tonight. Not as obligation, but as, I do not know what to call it. Choice, Marcus supplied. Call it choice, yes. Her hand tightened in his. Choice. They fell asleep on the couch together, still holding hands, the boundaries between them beginning to blur. It wasn't love, not yet. Maybe not ever, but it was something. A beginning. A fragile bridge being built between two damaged people who'd been thrown together by forces beyond their control. And in the morning, when Marcus woke to find the Sarah's burgundy hair spilled across his shoulder, her face peaceful in sleep, he didn't move. Didn't want to disturb the quiet peace of the moment. Outside, the twin suns of Meridian 7 rose over red dust and green valleys. Painting the world in shades of hope. Inside, two hearts began, very slowly, to heal.